Today we are going to build a very simple chatbot using Chainlit. Chainlit is a Python tool used to build AI-powered chatbots that can have smart conversations. Chainlit works with AI models like OpenAI GPT to create chatbots that feel like very natural and human. This is a very simple DineBot built in the Chainlit. The reason I built this in the Chainlit is there are some cool features in the Chainlit. So you can see here this UI. I didn't write a single line for this UI or a single line of the CSS. All of this UI is provided by the Chainlit by default. This chatbot is integrated with the GPT models. Chainlit also supports integration with the OpenAI models, the Llama, Hugging Face. Chainlit also keeps track of the chat history. So on the left side you can see here that I have recently communicated with the chatbot and it has all the history of the chats. It supports a user login by default. So currently I am logged in with the admin, and if I do a logout here, it supports login with GitHub, Google, and many other third-party login providers. Chainlit also supports integration with different platforms like Fast API, React, Copilot, Teams, Slack, and all these third-party platforms. So now let's switch back to the terminal and start building this chatbot by using the Chainlit and Python. The first thing I need to do is to initialize this directory, which is the DineBot, as a Chainlit project. I'll run this command chainlit init. This command will create some required files and configurations. I'll open this project in the VS Code, and here you can see that the chainlit init command has created these few files called the .chainlit, and it has the .files where the uploaded files will be uploading. Now to start writing our actual chatbot, I'll add a new file here and I'll call this file app.py, and here I'll paste the Chainlit port for the communication with the user. Here I'm importing the Chainlit library and I'm calling it as CL here with this decorator @cl.onMessage. Whenever a new message comes in from the user, this function will be called automatically. This function will actually accept the message. Any message we are getting from the user, that message will be available here. The type of that message will be cl.message. And the moment we are getting that message from the user, we are assigning it to a user message variable. Here we are appending that, okay, we received this message. From the message we are getting the message content. Once we have the user message received, we are just sending back that message to the user interface. So when we communicate with the chatbot and we send a message, we will promptly get the response back and we will confirm that, okay, the chatbot has received this message, the one we are just seeing on the user interface. So now let's save these changes and go back to the terminal and run this command chainlit run app.py. Chainlit will actually run this app.py as a chatbot application. Then it will start watching for the changes in this directory. If you make any changes in this directory, it will be automatically reloaded. Let's run this. So here in the browser, the chatbot is loaded and it has this interface by default available, where this resemblance will like sort of ChatGPT, where you have this input box for the message. You can attach files from here. You can start a new chat from here. Here you can see the dark mode and the light mode. Once we integrate the authentication, we will have here the username and the logout button also. And on the left side, you will see all the recent conversations with your chatbot. So let's communicate with this chatbot and see how it behaves. The moment I am sending this message, the chatbot is replying me back with that same message, and the reason is we are getting the message here and we are sending back to the user. Now let's start building the actual bot. To get help of the large language models like OpenAI GPT, so when we get the user message, we will pass it to the large language model like the OpenAI GPT. GPT will give us a response. We will get that response back to the user. For that, I'll create a new file called llm.py. In the llm.py, we will communicate with the large language model. That large language model could be GPT, Llama, any other large language model. In this video, since we are utilizing the OpenAI GPT model, first I'll import the Chainlit here as a CL, then I'll import the OpenAI SDK here as a asynchronous. Whenever we are communicating with the large language model, the first thing we always do is that we are instructing the large language model that I want you to do this thing for me. In this case, since we are building a DineBot part, we will need to instruct the large language model to act as a restaurant. For that, first we need to provide some list of restaurants to the large language models, and we'll instruct the large language model how you should communicate with the customer, how you should pick the order, what should be like all the steps from taking the order to the delivery. First, I'll create a system message here for the large language model. So in this case, we are using GPT. For the GPT, we are instructing that you are a restaurant chatbot, an automated service to collect orders for restaurants online. Here we are actually training our GPT model that you are a chatbot and you need to serve the customers sort of like an online restaurant. This should be the process of communication with the customer. So first you will need to take the order, ask if the order will be delivered or picked. In case of delivery, ask for the delivery address, and in case of pickup, give the restaurant address. Once you collect the order, first summarize the order, then ask for the cash or for the card payment. At the end, say a goodbye. This is the restaurants and menu. So this is exactly the same thing if you are communicating with the ChatGPT, but since ChatGPT is a very generalized chatbot, here in this case we are actually creating a very dedicated chatbot which should be only serving restaurants and its customers. Next, I'll initialize the OpenAI client to communicate with the GPT model. After that, I'll create my messages list. Since OpenAI GPT model accepts a list of messages, first it will have the role system. Here in the content, we will pass the system message. The first thing we always do with the large language model is that we are instructing the large language model. And next, I'll define my actual function for taking the order. Take order will actually take the user message, so the GPT model knows what actually the user wants. And next, we are using that same messages list and we are appending the user message. First, we will have the system message where the GPT will be instructed. Next, we will pass the user message based on whatever message we have got from the user. And once we got the message, we also need to add that message to the user interface as well. Here I am calling the OpenAI GPT model by using the OpenAI client. I'm passing the model, I'm passing the list of messages. For this, I'll be using the streaming response. So I'm setting the response stream equal to true. Then I'm going through the stream and I'll append that every chunk of stream to the user interface as we are getting from the OpenAI GPT. Then I'm appending the assistant message. So first we will have the system message, then we will have the user message, and at the end, whatever response we have got from the OpenAI GPT, we will append that to the list of messages. This way we are passing the whole conversation context to the GPT, because large language models are contextless and every time you need to pass the whole conversation. So if you are sending first message and then you are sending a message maybe after 2 or 5 minutes, the large language model should know that in what context you are talking about. That's the reason we are appending all the messages here every time you are sending an order or you are communicating within the context of that same order. At the end, we are updating the message object from the Chainlit. Now we need to call this take order function from the app.py. I'll go back to the app.py and I'll remove all these existing stuff. I'll just call that await take order function. So I'll import it here from the LLM import take order. One last thing before we start testing the chatbot in the browser is we need to also add the OpenAI API key. I'll add a .env file here and I'll paste my OpenAI API key here. Now if we go back to the browser and we start communicating with this chatbot, suppose I'm asking what is for the lunch today, and the chatbot has started replying me with the list of restaurants. So we have 2 wonderful restaurants to choose from the lunch today. Then it's giving me all the options and the menu. So what would you like to order? Suppose I am selecting the option 2. From the option 2, it's providing me all the food items with the prices. Suppose I am selecting paneer tikka and I'd say no. Now it's asking me if I would like to pick up this order or I would like this order to be delivered. Suppose I'm saying deliver. I'm just putting a dummy address, house 123 street. Can you please confirm if everything is correct? Yes. So you can notice the order of all these questions the chatbot is asking. This was the order for, it's taking the order, asking for delivery, and at the end it will ask for the payment method, and then it will say a goodbye message. I want to pay on cash. Now this has given me the summary and the payment method, and at the end it's saying a goodbye message. From the left side you can see that if I open this open sidebar, it says that conversations are not persistent, and by default the Chainlit does not persist the conversations. To make your chat persistent you need only two things. So first you need to make sure that you have the user login enabled. The chatbot knows that okay, this user has this list of conversation, this other XYZ user has this list of conversations. First I'll enable the authentication, then I'll just add the literalAI API key in my .env file, and everything should be perfect. To enable the authentication always requires a username or email and a password. For the password, Chainlit needs secret token to encrypt your password, and for that I'll use this environment variable called Chainlit auth secret. And next, to enable the authentication, I'll go to the app.py. I'll add this snippet here, cl.on password auth callback. In the callback I am just checking this if username password is equal to admin. By default this will accept the admin username and password to log into the chatbot. The last thing we need is to add the literalAI API key. So I'll paste the literalAI API key here. I'll go back to the terminal and I'll stop and restart the chatbot. And now the moment I reload my chatbot, it's by default going to the login, because initially no user was logged in. Since we have enabled authentication, it requires a user to be logged in. I'll put that username and password here and I'll click on continue. Now you can see here that the chats are coming. These chats are coming when I was testing this chatbot, and since I'm using that same API key, that's the reason it's loading the older conversation for this same chatbot. Suppose I'm adding a new conversation here. What is for the dinner today? Now you can see on the left sidebar that the chat history is refreshing and it has made that chat persistent to the literalAI API. From the authentication side you can see that the current logged in user is admin, and if I can log out here, I can log in back here and the chat should be as it is. This was the last communication we did with this chatbot. You can notice here one thing, that even the chats are persisted. I can reload the previous chat but I don't see any input box here the way it is when I click on a new chat. Chainlit also does not do that by default, and if you want to make the chats resumable, you need to add a very simple script to the app.py. So I'll go back to app.py. Here I'll add the resume chat option here from the Chainlit on chat resume. I'm just passing this function definition on chat resume and I don't do anything else here. But in the future, if you want to do any customization when you are resuming a chat, you can do all that stuff here. Now if I go back to my chatbot, you can see here that the resume button is added, and now if I click on the resume chat, the input box should be appeared here and I can start resume the chat here. Suppose I'm just putting a message hi, and now if I reload this chat again, I should have that hi message and also the resume chat option. Here you can see the last message was hi and I can resume this chat. If I click on any other chat from the left sidebar, I should have this option of resume chat. This was a quick demo of how we can configure Chainlit for creating chatbots, and then we use chatbot to create a DineBot for serving customers as a restaurant. It was providing all the menu items, all the restaurants. Then we added the feature of adding authentication. We also made the chatbot history persistence, and at the end we also enabled the chat resume option.